If you want a shortcut to understanding how people get us to say yes, you are in exactly the right place. Okay, so let's unpack this. The big idea, really, is that life is just. It's too complex. We can't possibly analyze every single decision.
Not even close.
So to survive, we rely on these, what the source calls automatic fixed action patterns. They're like these little tapes in our brain.
Yeah, pre-recorded tapes that just play when something triggers them. It's not about being lazy. It's just, it's a necessary shortcut.
A survival mechanism.
Exactly. And what's fascinating is how simple the triggers are. These trigger features, as they're called, they activate this whole mechanical response, a real click or a reaction.
Like the turkey example, that was startling.
Oh, it's the perfect analogy. The mother turkey has this one maternal trigger, the cheep-cheep sound of her chicks. So you can take a stuffed polecat, her natural enemy, and she'll attack it viciously. But if you put a little recorder inside that plays cheep-cheep,
treats it like her own baby,
she'll embrace it instantly. Then you turn the sound off and wham, she's attacking it again. It's a single, simple trigger.
And that's what makes us so vulnerable.
Precisely. Because these automatic responses, while they're usually efficient, they are so exploitable. And the people who know how to do it, the compliance professionals, they are masters at pushing our buttons. We've synthesized the 6 big psychological principles they use.
Okay, let's start with that basic human need for shortcuts. We saw that great example with the turquoise jewelry. The shoppers just wouldn't buy it.
Right, not until the price was accidentally doubled.
And then it sold out. They couldn't judge the quality themselves, so they just used a single trigger cost. Higher price must mean higher quality.
And that leads us right into the first principle, the contrast principle.
This one is so subtle.
It's a perceptual trick. That's all it is. If you're shown 2 things one after the other, the difference between them seems way bigger than it actually is, like the pails of water experiment.
Yeah, one hand in cold water, one in hot.
Then you put both in lukewarm water, and the cold hand feels it as hot, the hot hand feels it as cold. Your reality is being manipulated just by what came before.
And it's basically undetectable, so how is this used on us?
Oh, all the time. Retail clothiers are brilliant at this. They always sell you the expensive item first.
The suit.
Always the suit. After you've dropped, say, $500 on a suit, what's a $95 sweater? It feels like nothing by comparison.
And real estate agents do it too.
With setup properties, they'll show you a couple of rundown, overpriced houses first, so when they finally show you the one they actually want to sell, it looks incredible, a fantastic deal.
So we go from manipulating our perception to, what, our social obligations?
Yeah.
The rule of reciprocation.
Reciprocation is huge. It's this deep cross-cultural rule, this web of indebtedness. It's fundamental to how societies work. If someone gives you something, you feel this powerful need to give something back.
And what's so wild is it doesn't matter if we even ask for the favor or if we even like the person.
Not at all. Regan's Coke experiment proved that perfectly. A guy brings you a Coke you didn't ask for. It costs 10 cents. Later, he asks you to buy some raffle tickets.
And your compliance just skyrockets.
Through the roof. And that feeling of debt, it completely wiped out whether the person even liked the guy asking. The tape was triggered. End of story.
We see it in politics constantly, this idea of log rolling.
Oh, absolutely. Lyndon Johnson was a master. He spent years in power doing favors for people. So when he became president, he could just call in those debts to get his legislation passed.
And Jimmy Carter was the opposite.
The exact opposite. He ran as an outsider. So when he got there, well, nobody owed him anything. He hadn't built that web of indebtedness, and he really struggled because of it.
Okay, here's where it gets really clever, though. When these professionals combine the principles, the rejection then retreat technique.
The old door in the face.
Right.
Yeah, it's a beautiful piece of psychological jiu-jitsu because it uses both contrast and reciprocation.
Yeah.
You start with a ridiculously large request, one you know they'll say no to.
And when they reject it, you retreat to a smaller request.
Which was the one you wanted all along. And 2 things happen. First, the small request looks tiny by comparison. That's the contrast principle. Second, your retreat is seen as a concession.
And they feel obligated to reciprocate your concession by saying yes.
Exactly. The Watergate break-in is the perfect, tragic example of this.
You couldn't believe this part.
Liddy's final plan, the $250,000 one, it only got approved after Mitchell and Magruder had rejected his first 2 insane proposals. $1 million, then $500,000.
So when he came back with the smaller plan,
They felt like they had to give him something. They said so later. He felt obligated to reciprocate his retreat. And the one guy who said no to the final plan, He was the only one who hadn't heard the first 2 crazy pitches.
Wow. And the weirdest part is that the victim of this trick actually feels better about the outcome.
They do. They feel more responsible for the final agreement, more satisfied. There was that blood donation study. First, they asked students for a multi-year commitment.
Which they all refused.
Of course. Then they were treated to, okay, how about just 1 pint today? And not only did more people agree, but a staggering 84% of them agreed to donate again in the future. They felt like they negotiated the deal.
That feeling of having negotiated it, that leads right into the next principle, doesn't it? Commitment and consistency.
It does. It's this almost obsessive desire we have to be and to appear consistent with things we've already done.
It's another shortcut. It saves us from having to think things through all over again.
It's a safe harbor. Once we make a decision, it's just easier to stick with it. Think about racetrack bettors. Their confidence in their horse shoots up the moment after they place the bet. Nothing has changed except their commitment.
Or that painful story about Sarah and Tim.
Ugh, yeah. She goes back to him because he promises to marry her and stop drinking. He doesn't do either.
And instead of leaving, she becomes more devoted.
She has to. She's got to justify this huge public choice she made. So she convinces herself he's number 1 in her heart, just to stay consistent with her initial decision. It's a form of self-delusion.
So what triggers this consistency tape? It's the initial commitment.
Commitment is the key. And it can start really small. The Chinese learned this in the POW camps. They'd just get American prisoners to write tiny, seemingly harmless, anti-American or pro-communist statements.
And the act of writing it down was critical.
So critical. It's a physical act. It's tangible proof. It makes the commitment real. And then there's the public eye. We are terrified of looking inconsistent to other people.
Like the woman who wanted to quit smoking.
Right. She wrote it on business cards, signed them, and gave them to everyone she respected. She made it public, so she was locked in.
And that's exactly what that Drive Carefully study did.
Friedman and Fraser, yeah. They got people to sign a tiny petition for state beautification. A tiny commitment. But it subtly changed their self-image. Now they saw themselves as, public-spirited citizens.
So 2 weeks later, when asked to put a giant, ugly billboard in their yard,
they were much more likely to say yes. They had to act consistently with who they now thought they were.
This internal justification is what makes the lowball tactic so effective.
Oh, car dealers love this one. They offer you a fantastic price to get you to commit, to make that decision.
And once you've done the paperwork, the test drives, once you've started imagining the car in your driveway,
you've already generated a bunch of new reasons to love the car. That's when the dealer comes back and says, oh, my manager found a mistake, the price is actually higher, or the trade-in is lower.
And people still go through with the worst deal.
Often, yes, because the decision has grown its own legs. They've already rationalized it so much they can't back out.
So how do you defend against this? Against this foolish consistency?
You have to listen to your gut. That first flash of feeling, what the source calls the heart of hearts, that tells you you're being trapped.
And there's a question you can ask yourself.
Right. You ask, knowing what I know now, if I could go back in time, would I make the same choice? If the answer that pops into your head is a visceral no, you know you need to get out. You know the rationalizations came after the fact.
Okay, let's switch from internal guides to external ones. Social proof. This is huge.
It's how we navigate most of life. We figure out what to do by looking at what everyone else is doing. It's usually a good shortcut.
But it leaves us wide open to manipulation.
Especially to fake evidence. The most common example is canned laughter. Laugh tracks.
I hate laugh tracks.
Everybody says they do. But experiments show they work. They make audiences laugh longer and rate the material as funnier, even when they know the laughter completely fake.
It's the turkey and the cheap sound all over again.
It is. It's a mindless, reflexive response. And it's not new. Italian operas had clacks-hired applauders with published rate sheets for different levels of enthusiasm.
That is just amazing. But this gets really dangerous in an emergency. The idea of pluralistic ignorance.
Yeah, this is terrifying.
Yeah.
In an ambiguous situation, everyone looks to everyone else to see how to react.
And because everyone is trying to look calm and collected.
Nobody does anything.
Yeah.
And everyone interprets the inaction of the group as proof that it's not a real emergency. That's the tragic story of Catherine Genovese. 38 people heard or saw her being murdered.
And no one called the police because they saw no one else was acting.
They all assumed someone else must know something they didn't. They assumed it wasn't a big deal.
So if you're ever in that situation, what's the defense?
You have to shatter the ambiguity.
Now
Don't just yell, help. Pick one person out of the crowd.
Make eye contact.
Yes.
Yeah.
Point. You, in the blue shirt, call 911. That removes all the uncertainty. It assigns direct responsibility.
And we're even more influenced by people who are similar to us.
Hugely. The source talks about the little boy, Chris, who was afraid to swim. The adult instructor couldn't convince him, but then he saw another 3-year-old, Tommy, swimming without a floaty.
And he immediately took his off and started swimming.
Because Tommy was like him. We look to our peers.
This also explains some really dark stuff, though. The Werther effect.
The copycat suicides, yeah. After a suicide is highly publicized, you see a measurable spike in fatal crashes, cars, planes, especially when the victims are a similar age to the person in the story.
Yeah.
It's a horrifying form of social proof.
And you see this in extreme situations like Jonestown.
Absolutely. That isolation in the unfamiliar Guyanese jungle was key. It made the cult members intensely reliant on each other, on similar others, for cues on how to behave, right up to the very end.
All right, let's move on to connecting with people. Liking. We just comply more with people we like. It's simple.
It is simple, but the factors that create liking are often things we don't consciously notice, like the halo effect from physical attractiveness.
We just automatically assume good-looking people are better people.
We do. We assign them traits like talent, kindness, honesty, intelligence, without a shred of evidence.
Yeah.
And it has real-world consequences.
The studies are pretty shocking.
They are. Attractive political candidates get more votes. Good-looking defendants get lighter sentences. One study found attractive men were twice as likely to avoid jail. We trust them more.
And beyond just looks, there's similarity again.
Right. We like people who are like us. There was a study where people were way more likely to help someone who was dressed like them, or sign a petition without even reading it, just because the person asking looked like they were from the same tribe, so to speak.
And what about cooperation?
Cooperation is huge for building liking, but the context is everything. Just putting people together like an early school desegregation, it's not enough. If the environment is competitive, it can actually increase hostility.
But the Jigsaw classroom was different.
It was brilliant. It forced students to cooperate, to rely on each other, to learn the material for a test. And that shared goal, that mutual success, is what actually built friendships and reduced prejudice.
Okay, let's pivot to the heavy one. Authority. The Milgram experiment is it's still so shocking.
It showed this extreme willingness of adults to go to almost any lengths on the command of an authority. 65% of people delivered the maximum 450-volt shock just because a guy in a lab coat told them to.
That's mindless deference.
It is, and it leads to these absurd, dangerous errors in the real world, especially in hospitals.
The rectal earache.
The rectal earache. The doctor writes "our ear" on the chart. The nurse reads it, and without a single question puts the eardrops in the patient's, in their rectum.
And the patient didn't question it either.
Nobody questions it. Because a legitimate authority is spoken, we just stop thinking.
And it's not even real authority we defer to, it's just the symbols of it.
Exactly. Like titles. That study where a fake doctor called a hospital ward, and 95% of the nurses were ready to administer an improper, unauthorized drug dosage to a patient, just based on a voice on the phone who claimed to be a doctor.
And clothing, uniforms, business suits.
They give instant credibility. It's how those bank examiner scams work. The con artist just needs to look the part.
So how do we fight this?
It's a two-step process. First, you have to ask, is this person really an expert here? Check their credentials, but more importantly, check their relevance. Second, you ask, how truthful can I expect them to be?
The waiter trick.
Vince the waiter, yeah. A classic compliance professional move. He'd recommend a slightly cheaper dish than the one you ordered. Just a small thing.
To make you think he's on your side.
To establish that he's a trustworthy authority. And then he'd say, but might I suggest a wine to go with that? And that's where he'd make all his money back and then some.
Okay, that brings us to the last principle. Scarcity. We want what we can't have.
Simple as that. Things that are less available seem more valuable. And it's driven by two things. First, that simple shortcut, rarity equals quality. But second, and much more powerful, is psychological reactance.
We hate having our freedoms taken away.
We hate it. It's why the terrible twos exist. It's the Romeo and Juliet effect. Parental interference just made them want each other more because their freedom to choose was being threatened.
And of course, compliance professionals are all over this. The limited number tactic.
This is the last one in stock.
Or the deadline.
This price is only good for today. It's all about creating pressure by threatening to take away your opportunity.
This applies to information, too. If you ban information.
People want it more, and they have a more favorable attitude toward it, even without knowing what it is. The UNC students who became more opposed to co-ed dorms after finding out a speech against them had been banned.
It's the same reason a judge telling a jury to disregard evidence backfires?
Exactly. The jury resents the restriction on their freedom, so that piece of evidence becomes even more influential, a total boomerang effect.
And there are optimal conditions for scarcity to be most powerful.
Right. It's not just things that are scarce, it's things that are newly scarce. Something that drops from abundance to scarcity is way more desirable.
Like with revolutions.
That's the historical parallel. Revolutions tend to happen not during periods of constant oppression, but after a period of improvement is suddenly taken away. As the source says, freedoms once granted will not be relinquished without a fight.
But the most potent trigger of all is when you add competition to scarcity.
That's the explosive cocktail. When we have to compete with rivals for scarce resources. It's a feeding frenzy. All rational thought goes out the window. Is why auctions get so out of control.
So with all that emotion swirling around, what's the defense?
You have to use that emotional arousal itself as a cue, as a stop sign. When you feel that heat, that frantic urge to get the scarce thing, you have to pause.
And ask yourself a simple question.
Why do I want this? Is it for the experience of it or just for the possession of it? The scarce cookies in the study didn't taste any better. The joy was in getting them, not in eating them. You had to separate those two things.
So to wrap this all up, we've got these 6 weapons of influence. Reciprocation, commitment and consistency, social proof, liking, authority, and scarcity. They are absolutely essential shortcuts. We need them.
We do. And as life gets more complex, more fast-paced, more full of information, we're going to rely on them more and more. We're going to fall back on that single trigger thinking, just like the lower animals. Understanding the rules is a matter of self-defense.
So what does this all mean for you listening? A professional who uses these principles honestly, a real expert, a truly limited offer, they're acting as a partner. But the one who fakes it, canned laughter, a fake title, they're an exploiter.
And our defense has to be recognizing that trigger and stepping back before we automatically react. But let's leave you with one final thought. Go back to Sarah and Tim.
Right. She convinced herself a bad choice was a good one, just to stay consistent.
Just to avoid admitting she was wrong. So if we could do that, if we can convince ourselves that a bad choice is actually good, purely because of our own internal need for consistency, what other huge life-altering decisions have we justified? In our jobs, our relationships, not based on what's true, but simply because, like those cultists in the source material, we feel, I can't afford to doubt, I have to believe.
And that might be the scariest cost of all.